Daughter in the furnace. Knots bound and creaking hung in closets of yesteryear, not to be discovered before corpses ripen, longing for penetration in this my season of new treason. Not hidden, shaking, not struggling, twitching, not waving, drowning. From one plot schemes of the changeless world itself cut short, scythes nearby. I grow cold in seance, your ghost speaks of being burnt to the soul. The well of stars will grant no exoneration. Heavy with October, the glint of knives glimmer in despise, hollow remembrance when tears echo rain and nothing will bring you back again. Sigh storms rage without reason in this my season of new treason. Drawn in the hollows with the hollow girl in the Death's Head orchard, the masks of iron await me, lies of stricture constrict the melody of chaos suborning. Between night and nightbreak ground to a mist, then mirage, your haunt moved darkly. Or did it? In contours of brutality, in tangles of shadow. The intervale of pentacles, you are not safe in your distance. Atone for the air and illuminate the continuous Belial. A modern truth. Life is an ongoing battle. We are not good but evil, not weakness but strength, not humility but pride. Deny the peddlers of light and false promise. It is the apex of Satanism to reveal itself and illuminate a satanic society. Adorned a utopian shift, her imagination is a brocade of moon-ridden decadence. Subjugate the stupid with their own ignorance, choke on it. I will pull you away from the edge of the sword. I was a savage, a hunter with howls of dispossession, and possessed with ownership. I will break you until I am broken. Skinny to skeletal, satanic hierarchies, the new stars are gods. My books sit on altars, yours in the furnace of the thrown away. Radioactive fires burn forever, deadly. I am an epochal dissenter. Don't be too busy analyzing life, live it. God is that which survives and conquers. England and its ornamental king. The decay of illicit love is quick and certain. A laissez-faire society dies a slow death with you. Your form shall be engulfed in a sacre of holocaust. You choose to remain in your witch house. Your weathered grounds build graves. Entwined in the spider-webbed bed, you lock the temporal against me. I am faithless, failed you, haunt your demands indwelling in wind. You entered my mind, a tight psychic thrust. I felt the crack of your fall, the snap of your neck. I do like my poetry. It's been a poem that I've been building probably in about a week. And it's song-worthy. It has a lot of imagery, surreal imagery, and I think it's appropriate for the Pentacle-Hours, which is from 5 to 7 p.m. every day, where all my ex-girlfriends listen in. They don't want to spend any time with me, but they do like to listen to my show, which is quite entertaining for me. I had a lot of feedback from yesterday's show. People just loved Luciferian enlightenment. I think it's really good that they do try to awaken people to a new way of thought in this dispossessed world of children that are very much in search of some kind of soul which they lost or don't have, and filling it up with illicit drugs in order to possibly locate some kind of higher arcana or reality from a soulless reality which they are coexisting in. Just the disenfranchised children with this knockout game and random acts of violence, more into just the violence than any trying to carry out a robbery or a theft. And I think that if they find witchcraft, spiritualism, or theism, or Satanism, or something, it'd be a lot better than trying to go out and kill old ladies, which they tried to do in Florida recently, as I said yesterday. And they attacked some woman, and she felt a pain thrust in her side, and there was some child who felt the brunt of her 44 pistol, which was quite intense. I have been given a small green snake to care for. I arrive at a car with several members of my family. A friend helps me tie the snake into a cloth and then tie it on the top of the car. We reach the house, and I am concerned about finding some fresh meat for the snake. It seems to need red meat occasionally. I just know. Making it a friend, I bow to it. My other friends lose track of it, and they can't understand any gardens or this snake, and I turn around to find it missing and that I am transforming. It's going to be sort of a dream reality show today. That was one that was sent to me. Quite fascinating. I recall a startling dream I had several years ago. I walked into a room and saw a very large brown spider sitting still on the floor. It was possibly 18 inches across. Feeling frightened, I nevertheless went to find a broom to kill the spider. As I returned to the room where I had seen the huge creature, there was no spider, but a woman was in its place. So it's been fascinating to read some of these. There was also a query from Virginia. A gentleman named Tom sent me an email in regards to these numbers. He's waking up seeing 1111 or 711 or different coordinated timings. You know, there's so much theory just around that. It's definitely, I think, the quite obvious sign, play the lottery. I would definitely choose the numbers as opposed to allowing the machine to choose them for you, although a lazy way is to just say I want 6 slots and so on and so on. I've done that with the machine, allowed it to choose my numbers for it, and I found that some of the numbers are on there, but they'll repeat themselves, and the computer almost cheats you because it does not seem so random. It seems very manipulated. It seems that the machine is actually kind of giving you 47s and 46 and all these, very similar numbers and all on different lines, and they're all the same number. So I think they might be scamming us as a populace. Big surprise there, right? So in dreams with like 1111, or if you're seeing 711 or these different codes and things, there is probably timing with gambling, and I do gamble. I do play cards, underground card games or whatever, and I'm pretty good as I am with tarot cards. I've been dabbling in this since I was younger, quite younger, and learned a lot from my grandfather, who was a master card player. He used to count cards and have symbolism and watch cards and then watch players. And I wasn't really drawn into it, but it's a skill that I've acquired from that whole thing. People make a trade of it. It can be something where you'll walk into these casinos and you can run the house and you can do a lot. And they really can't get around a card counter. You can get banished from being a card counter, but it's a whole nother, basic reality racket. And I don't really do too much of this anymore. I'm not really interested in counting cards. But if you are having dreams with numbers in them, typically you probably want to play the lottery or, something thereabout. Or follow the signs. Definitely if you're seeing clocks in your dreams or other numbers or times or things in there, you want to try to calculate it all together and kind of see where you're at with things. Black magic sows dissension, punishes infraction, sustains vitality, raises wealth, elevates consciousness, liberates psyche, retains prominence, undermines jealousy, thwarts slander, establishes celebrity, fashions infamy, disinforms mockery, restores vigor, destroys enemies, blinds the blind, and unifies the witch kind. I wrote that the other day as well. I thought I would share that with you on the Pentacle-Hours. I am Winter Lake. You can find me at wolfloki@yahoo.com or winterlake.com. And the feedback's been good. And you can feedback me any way you want. You could tell me whether you love it or hate it or whatever, and I will adjust myself accordingly, possibly by talking about more relevant issues, things from probably 5,000 years ago to 1777, 1984, or even 2014. And into the future of 2020, which will be a complete transformation of mankind from its place where it is right now. A lot of people call it transhumanism. I call it satanic singularity, where we actually merge with our machines and become super Aryans and not so nice people anymore. Probably those that merge will not want to share their power, and it will be more of a reflection of man's inhumanity to man, and we will try to destroy one another on a greater scale than before, undermining a altruistic concept of what mankind is or was. However, I've also said that the first generation of the singularists will probably, face some kind of pitfalls. But if there is a first generation of singularists that are successful, there possibly may not be a second generation. But if there is a first generation that has failed, then the second generation will, be more modified. So that's something to look forward to on this, I think we're Tuesday, someday in December, and it's still 2013. It's been an amazing year. A lot of things have been going on. I've certainly been very active. My friends have done well. Some, however, are annoying and couch surfing and broke and trying to get on by pushing carts at Target or something. But, to each his own, and that's fine. In looking at the previous streams that I was talking about, this thing about a snake stood out to someone who sent me an email. Is a snake in a dream something of an ill omen? I'm not sure. Whenever I have dreamed about a snake in a dream, I felt it to be somewhat transformative, or actually some kind of positive thing has occurred. Windfall with money, or met someone interesting, or was able to make some room or time to do something. So it's hard to say. However, I guess it would also be what type of snake is in the dream. And I don't really know. I think it was a green snake or something. And so the color for me, obviously green being envy, green being pride, green being greed, there's probably a thing with that, like an issue, seeking transformation or something at the end towards that dream. The person felt transforming or possibly changing into a snake or something. It may possibly be that green with envy, greed aspect of their personality is coming out, or they're having financial issues. And it's something to look at. With the other dream about spiders, I'm not sure. The euphemism or standardization of our worldliness about spiders is, oh, they're horrible, they're tragic, they're ill omens, they're like scarabs in Egypt or something, and all of this other stuff. However, again, in my personal standpoint, a spider has brought me, again, tremendous amounts of money or luck or some kind of thing. I would definitely not kill a spider in your space because it's like killing your own money. So if you're dreaming of spiders, it's probably, again, a money-oriented aspect or a dream that is trying to tell you something. I suddenly remember that I had told someone that I would feel or feed their cats in a room at the end of a hall. I have forgotten all about them. I run down the hall, fearing I will find them all dead, as it has been many days since I last fed them. As I approach the door, I see a large ragged hole in the carpet where one of them has burrowed its way out. I stand looking at the hole and wondering what happened or where it had gone when I feel it attack me from behind. Its teeth sink into my shoulder blade, and I suddenly awaken. Now, this is a foreboding dream. Starved animals cannot be a good thing, especially cats. Cats probably on the fence with, your typical superstition of omens. You're seeing one or something crossing the street. And, I love cats, but I have had them cross the street on me, and I've had a horrible day. They just seem to cross that line like they're sending you a psychic message, because cats are very psychic and they're in tune with their owners. They're highly intelligent, and they're stubborn and selfish on purpose. They want to be that way. They could, meld with you more or, do certain things, but they just choose not to. Just like this cat being left to starve in a room with other cats that burrows its way out and attacks you. It would not surprise me that you probably have an enemy that is plotting or lying in wait upon you. So it's definitely something to be concerned about. Back in, I think it was sometime in May 2011, there was this heretic named Camping who made this prediction that the end of the world would come. And he was going on about his Bible, and the Bible, as I've mentioned before, is a very bloodthirsty doctrine. It definitely depicts man's inhumanity to man, and has a lot of 80% perversity and destruction in it. But he would go nightly on the radio in his network, which he purchased, and he built this massive $150 million scam operation out of California on this new breed of religionists hunkering down on the radio and giving its interpretations of the Bible and espousing the Bible and coming from some grandiose platform that he is the Messiah or something of the Bible, and he can express when the rapture is going to occur. This guy Camping, well, he died today, and I could not be more happier. I laughed when I heard that he died, and because I sent him a copy of my book, The Satanic Paradigm, shortly after he made his prediction, and I said, you're just going to end up being, bankrupt over this. You're going to end up being a shell. Your rapture prediction is going to fail, and then in short order, you will fail. It wasn't an outright curse upon my part. I didn't need to do it. The man is cursed himself. He brought about his own destruction because he brought thousands of people to ruin. He would pillage their money. He would, if anything, be a leper messiah. They would sell everything, and they were following this ideology that today, this May 11 day in blah, blah, 2011 is going to be the rapture, and we're all going to be taken up by the Holy Spirit. And it was a real deceptive lie on the part of a false messiah. I had an encounter one-on-one with one of these religionists that were conditioned under this herd lie that this Camping man had said, and I quoted the Bible, and I said, you will not know the day or the hour. And that guy threw his Bible at me. He was so mad because I know how to deal with these type of people because I know their Bible better than anything. And I look at it as a philosophical and an educational standpoint. It's not even a fact of trying to create some kind of heresy or Christian bash. I don't want to even care about misleading or converting or judging or any of that nonsense. But this man camping took it under his wing that he's going to broadcast to the country and the world, have them sell their possessions for his hierarchy, and make these signs across the nation stating that on this such and such a date, there's going to be an apocalypse, an end of the world, and a rapture, and it was all a lie. And all of those people that sold their possessions and quit their jobs and followed this false Messiah were ruined. So it's good that this idiot is dead. The world is a better place. Lock them out. Lock them in. Bar the door. Curse come in. Curse go back, bent with double pain and lack, silver arrow seek and find. It's kind of hard to believe that that is written from Haxon, wrung out by William Burroughs. These simple little 4 or 5 line curse relative things. And an interesting thing about curses, they do work. And it doesn't require your belief in them because they believe in you. Especially if someone like myself has the intent to put a curse on someone, a place, or a possession, or a thing. It can be very destructive and wreak havoc in someone's life, as it should, especially if they feel wronged. And, curses annihilate and they go either way, and they can engulf entire families, and the evidence doesn't even have to be circumstantial. It can just be on a feeling. It can be because I just feel like doing it. And that's what's interesting about satanic commerce in general. But this is the age where we sell, the age of Aquarius down the river, like everything else. Or anti-clericism or whatever. But hacks and curses or melodrama, I do think need to be justified somewhat. I think if you're just running around putting curses on people just because you'd like to see things burn, and some men do just like to see things burn, you might be engulfed in your own fire. You might be engulfed in your own Holocaust. It's not really some kind of redeeming social significance. Or for the point of some hysterical woman. If you're rich in your own cynicism or concepts of black magic with a desire to delve into more of a mysticism of the curse and witchcraft, I hope you find it transformative, because vengeance is redemptive. People don't think that vengeance really has a place and that it should be, harm no one. And, I know you just punched me in the head, but I'm not going to do anything about it. No, I just don't play that game. Vengeance is redemption. The only way you get any kind of redemption in this world, on Earth or Terra or the galaxy, is to become Old Testament, an eye for an eye. And it's relevant today. However, everyone is so passive-aggressive and they're allowing themselves to be run over that they're weak and pathetic, and they're just cowards because they're not willing to face up to things, or they're not, and I guess they should be kicked, because that's what you do to people when they're down, or I guess in this society, right? Or get up and fight back. Don't you think that would be a better thing? And meet a curse for a curse. Like, this is an interesting incantation. In the northernmost reaches of Nordland, where the snow and sky seem one, there's a mythical world of white shadows called the Land of the Black Sun. It is whispered by natives who dwell there over campfires and voices low, that a long time ago to their valley came a stranger who braved the snow, a woman whose pains and labor needs birth, and filled in a midnight gabe and wail the breath of a mother that had stilled. But the spell that was cast on that midnight was to live after one by one, and the screams came near, and each child that was afflicted with the curse of the black sun. It's kind of interesting and popular pagan reality and our constant evil nature, in my opinion, in modern times as it is in December 2013. Isn't that a nice, loving poem? I don't know. I mean, there's been so much perversion in our society with our dates and times as we have placed Jesus' birth in the middle of a pagan holiday. So it's almost becomes laughable. You know, it's almost demonic. I think if people like Camping really read their Bible and analyzed where they put their faith in a book, and I recommend that people do not put their faith in a book or a person. They need to put their faith in themselves. And it would go a lot further for you. It would transmogrify, a vicious crone into a seductress, wouldn't it? Which is something that I encounter quite often. They end up being kind of destructive, though. Definitely not holy ladies or sacred prostitutes, I suppose. But this guy Camping definitely whored out society, and he whored out a lot of people, and he really brought a lot of desolation into people's lives, and that is not what black magic is meant to do. And black magic is a great rectifier, and if you are sending a curse, make sure you're seeking your redemption. Or you're righting some wrong that has definitely been done upon yourself or others, and do your research. Because as I said, if you're going around just throwing your projection, your psychic energy, your astral destruction upon others just for the sake of doing it, you more than likely will be engulfed in your own destruction, your own holocaust. And it's interesting because the devil does not disavow, that is for sure. And we live in a culture of the invented. And female succubuses are everywhere. Isn't that wonderful? Got a few more dreams in. Been dwelling a little bit on that. Something came in about cops or something where they were chased on a pier by some kind of cops, or they were thugs and transformed into something. Chasing is so consistent, and it's been so consistent since the beginning of my analysis of the dream structure. And Pentacle-Hours, I'm freeform. So as you can see, I can move through my topics seamlessly. It's a master's art, or is it a philosophical concept? But we are one streaming worldwide mind consciousness that moves throughout all these different things. So I'm not preset into like other radio programs where they'll say, okay, we're going to discuss this for 20 minutes, take your break, this and this. I'm freeform, so I can discuss anything from the heresy of this Camping idiot into black magic and cursing, and then I can move back into dreams and so on and so on. So you can kind of see how Pentacle-Hours works, because we are a gate in time and space. And even though we broadcast from 5 to 7 live, if you are anything of a remote viewer, you know that time has no meaning and no concept, that past and future and the now are all relative in one aspect, especially in string physics. And you can see that even if this broadcast is listened to a year from now or whatever, in the past or the present, you will find its relevance to be sought later, and answers will be adorned at a future date. So I do leave clues, and I do leave crucibles, and it's not just satire. I'm very real about what I do. You're dealing with a very high, powerful person that is very much into his work, but he has no ego about it. I'm not seeking to convert. So listen for those clues, because if you are a practitioner, and then give that back to me. We are all part of Beelzebub's Lord of the Flies aspect. Man's evil for his own self, for his own learning power, and the ultimate truth. And truth is very subjective, because one man's truth is another man's lie. One man's God is another man's devil. So we can look at it from all different aspects of the pentacle. Is it just a premise of Satan worship? Is it something where we're going to be on Metro Golden Mayer's Forbidden Planet remake or something. Yes, possibly. Hollywood is the great aspect of our occult as well, and that is a pair of reaches of my human psychology. There is always commercial value in subliminal suggestion, and I offer it freely. And it increases every day, especially within my mind reach. The mentalist and influencing that is going on is very much my own. It's not necessarily a project. I think it's more natural. And there is a contrarian value to be had in some of these externalized horrors of self-acknowledging secrets or something to be revealed later, because that is the essence of the occult wisdom. If you are looking for occult power, Satanism, witchcraft, deliverance, to find a soul, to realize your own godhood, and to rise above the morass of society, you can seek into the hidden knowledge of all things, and you will find the continuity of the forbidden, or the continuity of something that will strike you, that will bewitch you, that will be your letter to the devil, or it will be a skilled analyst. There's something of the human mind that you did not know that will awaken you. It's not just existential horror. I don't just skim the surface of terror. I can bring it about at any faction, any moment in history. Is a canon included in some unholy trilogy, some conflict between good and evil, when really I don't even think a conflict exists? It could be exploitative. Probably not. Because if everything is all one evil in a seamless stream that flows through space and time, we can come to the realization that we all plan to our own death and our own salvation, our own renewal, or our will to kill. And it is our beast within that is ever onward. And is it just simply a celebration of that fact, or some kind of climax of the freak, or a maiming scene, or some kind of history of our acceptance? Probably not. It could be that simple. But I think as it is attainment for a supernatural practitioner like myself, it is an ever rise to the Aryan to become more powerful, or to be something to overcome these stereotypes of good and bad. The Wizard of Oz is a perfect example. Oz fixed on popular stereotypes of good and bad, of a good and bad witch. Margaret Hamilton as a wicked witch of the West. She was happy to be recognized as an actress. She wished she remembered. She wished she would be remembered more for the Wizard of Oz. It was a lovely picture. She was quite maimed and injured in that picture. And she even broke her ankle or leg or something in Disappearances of the Cloud. And, she was couched, and these crone caricatures came out. But I tell you, if she was able to hallmark any of it, which she couldn't because the studio at the time had control, she'd probably be a very, very rich woman. You were beautiful, a lucid stream that was lost, a shattered spell, a cut cord, a mystical experience abashed and stolen from me in the arc light of our becoming real. You were sold away from me to the trivial and the semantic. And I do like my poetry. Wrote that the other day too. I don't even know if it's poetry. It's more along the lines of, again, my stream of consciousness thinking. And today is about stream of consciousness thinking. We will discuss writing. We will discuss different free-flowing formats within the Pentacle-Hours where time and space converge, and how you can develop different aspects. Now, is it even splitting off for a schizophrenic experience? Possibly. Are we all self-deceiving to overcome fear even more so? Someone sent me an email in regards to this camping guy. He didn't proselytize for Christianity. This camping proselytized for himself. He proselytized for his bank accounts. He used magicians' trickery and stage magic upon the world. And, he used some kind of truth packaged into fundamentalist nonsense that brought in the disgruntled and exited into some kind of paranormal rapture, large audience reality, and sold it like a whore. And it was as I said, I don't really garner to bring some straight arrow lecture. I discuss ESP, witchcraft, supernatural, the occult, and I can call out a false prophet every day of the week. And even back in those years, I directly challenged him, and I told him exactly what was going to happen, and it did. And there's another one on the earth right now. They come up all the time. There's all these false messiahs. There's one in Russia right now that is taking on this role of Jesus Christ, leading out all of these thousands of people in this village, and he's having, them build all these things for his honor and all this, and claiming he's a messiah. I would probably be the first to dress up like a Roman soldier and go over there and crucify him, because it's nonsense. It's a fraud, and it leads people to ruin. And they need to be brought down with hawkish militarism, and they will. They're the worst of the latter day. They're the worst. They're an assault on mind. It's a depravity. And I think the outlet through Satanism demonstrates that the real power can be overcome from within, that you don't need a Messiah to lead you. You do not need a shepherd to bind you. That, there's a wide range of witchery and occult which unifies the body and the soul, and it creates a liaison of independent experience. Is it an institutional theology? No, it's not. Does it have one basis? No. It is some kind of aspect, an innate occult aspect of ourselves that destroys repression and raises us up into a higher consciousness. And it goes to what I was talking about, free-flowing forms of how we think and how we internalize our aspects and avoid prohibition. The experience of the occult, and that's such an overplayed thing, because there's been many shows that talk about the occult experience and so on. It is something that is experienced, but it is something that is within, and you do not need to externalize it by this nonsense of these different Christian messiahs or Islamic gurus or whatever that are seeking to really empty your pockets and cage you in some kind of conditioned cult reality. And it's happening more and more. But there is, as camping fell, now we have, dealings with new false, erratic, ones that rise up, and they're there to mislead further down the road these individuals or people that need to think for themselves. They need to overcome their own cowardice, their own pain, and confront their inner, darkness and their inner reality. So it's all, a lifestyle. It could be, is it scholastic? Is it a valid advance? That is the key. As you can see, as a philosopher, you must ask yourself questions, and you must doubt everything. You must doubt, and where there is doubt, you can get to the truth, or whatever that semantic aspect of truth is, and you can judge for yourself where you think it's going to lead you. A lot of people, they go on this idea that, I believe in all of these things, and if I have a Messiah, then I don't have to worry about anything, and I'm getting all my needs met, and I just go along the tracks. It's kind of like being in a bad marriage when there's, when the sex is bad, and there are behaviors, that the individual does that completely turns you off, and you're just not like the person, and it's just forced, or that whole thing. And that's what happens with some of these cult ideologies. They rail you in, and they line their pockets, and you're the one left out to hang. And that's exactly what happened with this camping guy. Whole people were giving up everything and selling everything to follow this demonic Christ salvic nonsense of sadomasochistic torture for his own endeavor. And if anything is evil, that is. And I think he's rightfully where he belongs, and that is the grave. So Today's show, Pentacle-Hours, has been some kind of stream of consciousness thinking, going on a little bit about occultism, how it can better your lives, and sort of bring and introduce something into the disenfranchised and the disaffected youth of our current culture, which really never were suborned in some kind of church aspect or religiosity. They're just kind of soulless now and kind of grabbing on to just their aspects of just violence, like this knockout game, like home invaders. But it's interesting. How are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing good. So today's show, I've been talking about some stream of consciousness. And I think we were talking about writing as an aspect of almost lucid writing, and how different characters kind of come about, or how they come about and have a life of their own.
Yeah, and it was such a good conversation that I thought we'd share it without going into too many details or getting too far afield in the conversation. Just between you and I, that the listeners would enjoy part of that as well.
Right. So you as a writer, and you've been doing a lot of work in film and theater. How do you go about character development?
Well, I suppose I should let the listeners know who I am. I'm W.C. Turk. I'm a playwright. I'm an author. And I've had 2 very successful plays, and I've got 4 books in print. So
yes, you do.
I guess I was talking about this on my show last week, and one of the things that I was trying to figure out, that I've always been trying to figure out a little bit, is where characters come from and where that happens. Because I can tell you, as an author, it doesn't feel like it happens within me. It feels like it happens somewhere else, and maybe that's the illusion that I'm in. But I struggle with the idea that as I create these characters and they become their own people, and they decide what they're going to do in a story, especially if I've rendered them ahead of time properly, which I think is one of the ultimate responsibilities, or the ultimate job of any writer, is to do that. But at some point they seem to take over and have their own life, their own consciousness, and when they make decisions, I don't know if they're being made outside of me or inside of me. Is that a strange way of characterizing that?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's interesting. It's not a strange way. And I actually have the same similar questions. In character development, as they evolve, it's definitely, is it a form of schizophrenia, or are they splitting? As you write, like, for example, just taking, like, say we invent a character named Amanda, who is lascivious and kind of plotting and working 2 guys against the middle or something. And that's not necessarily my personality. I don't really play some kind of game like that. But this character takes on that role. And that character, in the story, Amanda, starts running these 2 men against the middle. It's not something that I would do. I wouldn't run 2 women against the middle, or per se, or whatever.
Or 2 men.
Yeah, or whatever, exactly. I mean, whatever. And it's just odd. So this character begins to have these traits. Now, these traits are how she dresses, and sometimes she could be bookish, very manipulative.
Sometimes you'll have, and I didn't mean to interrupt you, but sometimes, because I know as a writer yourself, sometimes you've created this character and now he or she feels real to you, but then all of a sudden that character will surprise you.
Right.
With something that's completely unexpected to your intention of that character.
Yeah, it'll come out on paper, and you won't know what she's thinking or what she's doing. I mean, and like, she felt the need.
You have to react to it. it, like that character is a real person. And if you don't, as a writer, as a storyteller, there are repercussions if you do not pay attention to that character.
There is, because then the story begins to lack and you begin to introduce more of your own personality against hers. So then you lose the whole continuity with the story. Is it channeling? Is it lucid writing, a form of lucid dreaming? I mean, it parallels even with dreams themselves. There's this unconscious channel that we are, picking out of that can garner these elaborate different types of personalities, which you and I, or persons or writers, wouldn't necessarily undertake. Like Amanda suddenly wanting to set up the other guy as the murderer, and really taking you all through task of, we're going to do this and this and this, and this is how it's done. When really you didn't even, that's not something where you think about on a daily basis.
Precisely. So I guess what you're saying, because like I said, I thought this was such a good conversation to have on the air, that you and I really did not spend a lot of time talking about this. So I'm guessing that you sort of find yourself as a writer in the same sort of dilemma.
Yeah, I embrace it. Or
with the same sort of mystery.
It's a mystery. Yeah, it's a huge mystery, because you wonder where you're splitting off. Is it becoming fantasy world? Is it, are you overdoing your imagination? Imagination is the palace of wisdom. It's an escape route tactic. But yeah, it's just fascinating. Look at all of what Stephen King has been able to create, and how he really steps into his characters. Although, not so much now. He's just a churning machine and possibly not even doing any of his own writing or whatever that is. But you and I as writers, and your characters, like you were explaining this recent one to me that totally sounded completely opposite of your personality.
Yeah, and that's generally the key. Is all these characters are usually something outside of myself, and I really try. And I've got one, a science fiction novel, and this character is maybe not entirely outside of me, because he gets into trouble by always saying the wrong thing at the wrong moment, and it gets him in a lot of trouble. I have a history of that.
Oh, interesting. So you brought that into it. Okay, I see.
A little bit, but now I've got this other character on the new novel who's a cat, and so I had a 19-year-old football star, ex-military, wounded military guy. I had a Ojibwe Indian who lives in the old ways. There's all of these characters. In the last novel, I had a black man.
See, that's bizarre.
Yeah, so I'm trying to get into these characters, but I can only get into them so far, because the characters say, no, you cannot go there, or this is what I would do. You can't do that.
Interesting.
You can't control me. So the best I can do as a writer is provide basically the goal line at the end of the book for them to get to, and then I'm just trying to keep them within the story enough to get them to my intended ending. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you're channeling through. Through, and you're allowing those gaps, and they'll be filled in time, and not pressed. It's a thing where, like, when I even come into some of those, they're not really walls. We had discussed this. You and I don't have writing block. We don't have enough time to write. That's our problem. We're writing.
Even if I did, I've never had the issue of writing.
Yeah, it's like I'm with one hand writing while I'm talking with you, writing with my left hand as well, simultaneously in Egypt hieroglyphic sigils, so I can recall that later. So my mind is like flying around all the time. You do the same thing. But these different characters, even when and I've been discussing dreams throughout the Pentacle-Hours show, but like the characters, especially if you sleep on a character, you'll wake up and you'll have fresh, different aspects and personality about that character. And
sometimes that character will come to me in my sleep.
Yes.
And will remind me or warn me or discuss things to me that they will say, that page, that chapter, I would not have done that. And if you do that, you're going to mess up everything from this point on.
Yeah, right, because it'll convolute the storyline or something.
Precisely. And I have never been in a situation. I've never been in a situation where I get to an end of a story and realize that, oh, this is all screwed up. I can't finish the book now. It's always been, at some point the character is going to tell me what's right and what's wrong, what they would do, what they're going to do, and my reaction to it fixes the story before it all happens, because that character is driving it. Does that make sense?
Yes. And an experience that I've had is I've gone into characters who I just despise from the get-go, and the whole time I'm trying to figure out how to kill them off.
I've done that, and I had characters tell me, go ahead and give it your best shot.
Yeah, they try, and they'll stay on, and you try to kill them off, but that makes the whole story. That the whole story is trying to be the Rasputin, that they just are so hard to kill. I mean, yeah. and they're just, and you just hate everything about them, and you want to kill them off, but it ends up being 3 screenplays later, and they're alive and well. It's just.
So what do you do? What do you do as a writer then to control or at least corral your characters so that they don't, because a lot of times in a story you'll have a group of characters. Well, in reality, people kind of don't just cluster together and stay together. They're moving in and out. Sometimes they're all moving away, and at some point, in reality, you could get all of those characters to just scatter and go away. So what do you do as a writer to make sure that those self-interested characters follow through to the end of the story?
I'm not sure. I've had them fall off. I'm doing this Star-Crossed Vampire show, which is a dark comedy. And it's weird because Cleopatra has taken on this preeminent role in it. And when I was writing it, it was going to be more of a different thing. It was going to be couples having their issues. But now the way it's going is that she's preeminent, and I actually want to phase myself out of it, or I feel like I'm being phased out. And it's weird because it's just a place that's becoming, a place that's arriving. It's odd how that occurs. I'm kind of trying to keep myself in it. Maybe it's just odd, but I'm creating the whole thing. If I want to, I could just force create the whole thing, but I'm finding it to be more interesting. For example, like different things occur in our space-time continuum, our moment or whatever in our writing experience. As you start down the page, you begin to get into a magic moment. It doesn't matter when that magic moment arrives, and if your character is going to stay or go at that point. And as you begin, it's beyond free writing. It's lucid writing, where you're channeling, using that term. And I'm sure you've experienced that magic moment when it can just, as you come, and then it just hits, and then you just start, and your character, and it's kind of character driven, like the character tells me if they're staying or going. The character kind of relates that to me. Like with Star-Crossed Vampires, I'll be into this dynamic between the husband and the wife vampire, and then all of a sudden I'm like, a spiritual advisor of Joan of Arc will appear, so it's just so random. So now you have this dark comedy where she's going to have Joan of Arc as a spiritual advisor. It makes no sense, but it's just so relative to how it works. it's very undecided by me how these characters stay or go, or how this development really happens.
Which I guess brings us sort of back to the original question.
Right.
Where does this happen? Where are these characters? Are they inside of us, or are we tapping into something outside of us that in a place in which these characters exist? Because I have had that magic moment in which, you know, you're looking for a plot point, or you're looking for a turn, and you don't have any idea how you're going to get there. Nothing seems to make sense. The character comes out and does something or says something, and suddenly you're like, you get this big smile on your face, like, oh, that was brilliant. But you know down deep inside yourself as a writer that you're not responsible for it, at least not consciously.
Yeah, it developed itself. Where does it come from? Is it stream of consciousness in the unconsciousness? Is it occurring like a dream? Because even when we go to dream, we don't really have any set parameters. Although there are scientists now that are trying to bring about manipulations to dreams to stage it. Or, I mean, there is mental processes that can occur to manipulate dreams. But dreams seem to happen random. You know, it's like this woman that went down and knew she had to feed a bunch of starving cats, and then a cat attack her. You know, you wonder, is it issues you're having? Is it schizophrenia? Is it time for the men in white coats? I don't know. You know, I mean, it only takes two people to sign us up, Bill. We may want to be quiet about our schizophrenic writing skills.
I'm sure the trucks and guys in white coats are already touring the neighborhood trying to catch me.
Barricade that door. Well, no, there's their excuse. If you barricade the door, they love to say that. Oh, he barricaded himself inside his apartment, you know, or whatever. That's crazy. I mean, it's really fascinating. And in writing, you know, from our perspective, is not stopping. It's not slowing down. We think it would. And this kind of thing can give you gray hair. I mean, it's just intense. And I don't know.
It's crazy. And here's something to even make it weirder now. I know you, because we've talked a little bit about this, that you come up with lots of characters, or at least channel characters, or however you want to describe it.
Right.
But there's lots of characters going on around you. The same thing with me. So I've got lots of stories going, and I've actually written stories and not known where to go. And a character from an entirely separate story will seem to cross over and redefine that narrative.
See, that's interesting. That's interesting. So you'll have a character completely out of the entirety of the play come in and introduce itself into the other one.
Yes.
How do you handle that? Because
at least what's that?
How do you handle that? Do you banish that from that story, or how do you handle it?
I suppose it depends upon the energy. It depends upon how well it works with the story, and if there's some, I don't know. You know what? I have to judge each of those things on their merits. It rarely happens, but when it happens, it's always worked, and it's always been for a reason. That character has come over and said, "I'll fix this story." And maybe I incorporate the character. Maybe I incorporate some aspect of the character. But it's as if those other characters are all kind of shepherding one another to make sure that the final stagecraft of a novel, of a story, is accurate and works.
And it just becomes lucid. So you sort of modify with it, or it's something that was meant to happen. But again, it wasn't intentional. It wasn't a planned course of action.
No. And I really try to be as unintentional as possible when writing, so that it feels like real life, so that I'm open to random moments, so that I'm prepared for the unexpected. And you know, and can incorporate it, because that's ultimately life.
It is life.
So And I sort of feel that if I take those moments, those unexpected moments, and if I'm awed by them as they occurred to me, and then I render that sense of awe, that sense of surprise, or something in the way that I word it, the excitement from which I craft a sentence or a paragraph or a page or a chapter, will be transferred to the reader, so that they also understand, or they are also garnering that sense of immediacy of real life. That this isn't something that was precisely mapped out, and then this person went A to B, B to C, D to E. That they went A to F, G to Z, X to Y, back and forth in zigzag, sort of like people in life do. And it ultimately gets to your destination, but you have no way of precisely predicting that destination.
Right, the destination is rooted out by its own circuitous thing. It's kind of like a controlled awe. I mean, you're trying to control it, although it's manifesting on its own, and it will lead you where it needs to be. It will lead you to that water. But do you have any specific account in your writing when a character had jumped over? Was there any two stories you could talk about?
I'm trying to think off the top of my head.
I did.
Yeah, there was when I was writing The Last Man, which people can get on Amazon and Barnes & Noble by W.C. Turk. When I was writing The Last Man, I wanted there to be a specific love interest. That love interest was wrong, and I had a character come over from the science fiction novel. It's sort of a comedy, sarcastic kind of take on those old, hard loving, hard fighting, hard drinking old westerns from the 50s and 60s. Angry Jasper. His girlfriend didn't work either, and they flipped places. So that, and I was working on this. About 3 years ago, somebody gave me a challenge. I had a challenge from a poet friend of mine, in which we were drinking one night, and I said, the problem with poets is that you're lazy novelists. And he told me that the problem with novelists is you never get to the point. So it was sort of this little back and forth, and he challenged me to write 5 novels in a year. I got 4.5 done.
See, challenges are good. See, a lot of people think challenges are bad, or getting into this kind of thing is a negative. I think it's good. I think being overambitious and setting a goal line is excellent. In writing, and I think if you are in a drinking argument and someone makes that, I think that's a good thing. And a lot of people are on the other side of it. They're like, oh, flow with it, and let's all write Faust, and it'll take 10 years. I don't have a decade. I don't have who has got time for that? Especially in this now culture where everything is all set up to be, are we ready now? If you don't email me now, or text me in 5 seconds, you're already out of date. I mean, and I think it's good to be challenged. And I challenge people all the time, and they seem to take offense to it. But I'm like, I say, hey, look, what are you doing? I mean, did you get this done? But it seems to be more and more passive aggressive in our culture.
And that was sort of the point of this, was, it was a good-natured challenge. He was a good friend.
Of course.
But also the challenge to yourself of can you do it? But that illustrated that there were two characters that did not work in the stories that they were at, and rather than me reinvent different characters for each of those stories, the characters literally jumped from story to story. The one came over to one story, one came over to the other story, as if they were trading apartments.
Yeah, they were.
Going, you know what? I like this apartment. I'm happy here. This is where I belong. This is where I need to be. This is where I was supposed to be.
And that was not an intentional decision on your part.
It was not an intentional decision. It actually was an epiphany. I was looking at the one character and I said, you know what? This character needs to be over here. She's not right for this person. But then the other character went, no, I need to be over there. And that got back to what we were originally saying. And I'm not going to take up too much of your show, but where does this happen? Are we? Is there so much? Is there so much about us that goes on within us that we don't understand, or do things happen outside of us and we tap into that? Either way, it's kind of a definition of humanity and community.
It is, but it plays out though in the subconscious, unknown reality, and it goes to storytelling as a humanity that's true. It goes to characters that need to be in a story that's true. But how do these characters within these stories seem to arrive with their personalities and be so relevant and so real and, completely anathema to the individual that is conveying? It's an odd form of a seance.
It really is. And, and I read all of these things in writers' magazines about, define your characters and write down every little thing. And I do that exercise. But at some point, they begin to take over. And at some point, those characters are not puppets. They're real.
Yeah, they totally take on this total personality, and it's still, I think, a question that we will be searching for. But I appreciate you calling in, and we'll chat again about this.
As always.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Okay.
So, it's interesting in talking with Bill Turk, who is a great writer and playwright, and joining our Stream of Consciousness show and discussion of things magic, ethereal, occult, and so on. But writing as an interplay, writing as an aspect of our personality, or not our, but mine, or writers like myself, poets or whatever, how do these characters come to take on such a personality against the person that, just like Bill said, he's writing about some, black guy or whatever, and, he's clearly not that or whatever, and it's not even a racial thing. But to bring about that aspect and then to have him develop that character, the character develops on its own. And it's fascinating from a writer's standpoint, from my standpoint, as to understand, and I still am going to search for a conclusion on that. I don't think a conclusion will ever be found as to where that channeling is occurring or how that is possibly happening, where a character is brought about and completely anathema to the person or opposite of the person, or how it develops onto itself. But therein is the mystery and other things that need to be solved. It's interesting. I was thinking more about lucid writing and where it comes from. Received an email about the discussion. This person said, "Oh, it's psychosis." So I guess I am ready for the white coats. I need to be a little less psychotic. I think you're probably looking for the word schizophrenic, or breaking of, personalities or something. I think there was some crazy book like Seth Speaks or something, where this person started having multiple personality disorders, or some crazy cover. I think I just own the book for the cover. Seth Speaks. But no, I think the point was missed in talking about lucid writing or channeling, or where does these unconscious character development happen as a personality. It's not necessarily that you lose your own personality. I mean, we're not turning into Seth and then turning into whatever our characters, although that does happen. And there is mania in the world, and there is, insanity in the world, and there are people that sit and talk to themselves. And writers do this all the time. Writers are very inverted within their reality. They're introverted, and they dwell in their whole space. And within their space, they're constantly having conversations with themselves. And I could see how mania and insanity would be borderline there. But I don't think to just be outrightly saying it's a schizophrenic event. If that were the case, then we wouldn't probably be in much of a very fun existence. It would be just some lateral, boring, flat reality where all we can do is not have a conversation within our own mind or have a philosophical argument or a doubt or a conscious, unconscious channeling into some kind of aether. We would just be staring at walls. I mean, we're not robots. So, you know, we're all rapping on some kind of divine wall. We're trying to shake things loose. You know, we're seeking some kind of Moloch experience and appreciation for a higher, you know, turnaround or even a bigger bankroll, as I said earlier, to somebody I was speaking with, who just likes to drink booze all the time. And I'm like, you need to get your head out of your booze and get your head out of your drugs and try to make some money for yourself or do something with your life. You know, maybe you can attain Saturn and be something good, you know, instead of degenerating into some kind of gross misinterpretation of yourself. And it's happening more and more, and you've heard my rants about psychotropic meds, and even booze can be a crutch. It's an avidly known crutch as well, and then you have the narcotic conglomeration and stuff. You know, these are perfumes of traders, and they're to be controlled because they're very tempestuous. You know, we can fall into that. You know, you don't have to think if you're loaded all the time. Then you don't have to address anything. You know, it's the same thing with just like doing whatever, going where the wind blows. You don't have to discuss anything. You don't have to confront anything. You can just embrace your cowardice and move on. You know, you fill up your holes with whoever you meet and you just go along with it and you warp your reality. You know, it's not even an ego trip on my part. It's just a constant aspect in this current authoritarian or authoritarianism thing. And is writing an escapism? Absolutely. You know, just as much as drugs or alcohol. I would like to think that writing is more, being an escapist tool would be more healthy. You would have something to offer at the end of the day, other than some wasted time relationship or, you know, the bottle of booze that's dried out at the end. And that goes with any kind of artistic endeavor, whether you're a painter or whatever. And if it's more about the party and you're consumed about the party, and I've been there, done that, you know, you've heard me reference the fact that I used to have some loft space and, you know, I'd try to do painting or something, and it just became more about the partying as opposed to the painting. It was about who was coming and going. Is that the, you know, youthful aspect? I like to still think I'm youthful, but, you know, there's a time and place for that, and that wasn't the intent or initial intent of me getting a loft space. My intent of the loft space was to do more harder controlled work, but then it becomes contrived, it becomes a fallacy, it becomes like, you know, a temple of hedonism or whatever. Not to say that I'm a big hedonist or whatever, but I mean, you can't be at the freak easy every night. Although during that loft experience, I certainly was probably throwing some things around. You know, if you are neglecting the study of literature or, you know, not really in the mode for thinking, I think it's good that you don't just get hung up on being hung up, or, you know, being in love with the aspect of love more so than anybody else. There are little tricks that can, you know, overcome some of this stuff about a degenerate society, you know, being brought up on false ideals or false gods, and declare yourself some kind of ultimate authority. And I think that the seeking through witchcraft and Satanism or some kind of aspect of a new enlightenment as opposed to some of the old dying relic religions can help that out. And having that as a backdrop for your own personality in your artistic ventures helps as well. And, again, I'm not seeking to convert or keep, saying that maybe this is a road for everyone. It's not. How we all arrive at our artistic endeavor is for each individual to discover. And some people just aren't artists. Many of us aren't. Writing, I don't know, is it even an art? It can be considered an art form. Is it a form of expression? I know that. Is painting or drawing an image an art? Yes, it probably is, because you are conveying an image which is pleasant or unpleasant to the eye, depending on who's looking at it. It's odd how that occurs. I think it's detail-oriented, and in painting, which we will explore other shows, because painting could take up a whole library of reality as far as how that works, the functionality of that, how it is very similar to character lucid writing, where you have this character that has its own personality, develops, and then it goes on by itself, and it sort of dictates to the writer how it's to be done. Very similar to what Bill and I discussed, that the character takes on a life of its own, and that it tells you as a writer, this and this and this are supposed to happen, and you shall not defy it. A very similar premise occurs in painting. You could go at painting like, I want to do an alien who is going to walk this certain way. And you end up doing some voluptuous woman sitting on a rock who is, enamored by some kind of, demon or something. Just completely out of what you did not expect. Or it can be very literal. The only way to really get literal is if you have a reflective image. So you put up an image right next to it, and you say, this image we're going to work from, and we're going to create this. Now, that is a way, obviously, to escape that, is very literal and lateral as a painter. But also as a painter, if you're just trying to do raw, raw structured work, and you have an idea how you want it to go, it's odd because it'll start one way and it can flip all the way to the other side. Just as I said, you're going to begin as an alien and then you end up with some kind of voluptuous woman, which I guess isn't a bad thing. I don't know. It depends on what you're into. About this dream interpretation aspects, and in numbers and in gambling, I received an email as well in regards to gambling. People are really enthused, or were enthused, because I received like 5 in a row, in discussing these numbers that I had mentioned earlier, and about paying attention to numbers in dreams. And again, in Pentacle-Hours, this is how my show is. I move around. It may not always be this way. It's not a music show, per se, so I'm not really giving playlists. People have asked for the playlist. I don't really give the playlist out or whatever, because I'm not wanting to gear it that way. Maybe at a later date we will get more structured and so on, but right now it's free-flowing. So just as I was talking about lucid writing, then lucid painting, even some occult in the middle there. Now I'm moving back into the numbers, numerological aspects in gambling, and paying attention to those numbers within your dream in order to maybe win the lottery. And that is what the Pentacle-Hours is about, between 5 and 7 p.m. Monday through Friday, live right here at QUE4.org and AM 1710. And hijacked on a bunch of other satellite networks and projected all throughout the world to millions of people that probably don't even know who I am, but they hear some odd voice in the wind, and it's like, oh, there's that weirdo again talking his nonsense. So there you go. But anyway, back to the numbers. Yes, if you see 1111, or you are waking up and your times are even, and this number for some reason stands out to you, take note of it. If you are watching in your dream and you see the clock set on a certain number, take note of it. If you're seeing pieces of paper passed to you with numbers on them, or certain things that just for some reason, 60 stands out, or 60 stands out, or 21 stands out, there is some good aether work there. There's some good magic that can be worked there. And there have been people And this is maybe something that can be even more investigated. However, people that do win the lottery have a tendency to be secretive, and who wouldn't? Because you went from rags to riches. You were broke, you had $5,000 in your bank account, even though that's not even paltry nowadays. And it's not. That's a good amount of chunk of change. But let's just use that for example. You go from $5,000 and all of a sudden you have 400 million. And you just, you randomly chose certain numbers. That's exactly how it works. You are random, and it is not concise. It is not even a left or right brain configuration where time and space meet together as one thing. It's just really paying attention to what numbers may call to you in a dream and assemble them. And also another thing that I've learned about this gambling or dreaming or lottery or something, you have to really execute on it within like 24 to 48 hours. You can't even really sit on it. So like you have a dream about your niece, so you know how old she was, so you kind of put her birth date down. And then you saw certain other numbers, so you add that in. So because that's just a weird thing about time and space and the relativity of numbers. Now, it's even beyond the aspect of card counting or something that I had mentioned earlier in my gambling experience. And I'm not a gambler. I'm not gambling so much now. I do underground card games if I get bored, but I found them to be tedious. And I found the people in that arena now to be not so something that I really want to put my life into. It can be kind of crass and ridiculous and one-dimensional, and maybe I'm just getting to be a prude or an intellectual or whatever, but it's just not my thing. And when it does, or when it is, if I'm in Monaco, then maybe I will gamble, and maybe it just be roulette, not cards. But there is a certain mindset to the gambler and to the cards, and there is a certain illness with it, and you have to learn to spot that. And there's a certain down and there's a certain up with it. And there's a whole mastery of it, and there's 1,000 books written on it by failed gamblers or gamblers that start out broke in the morning and they got money at the end of the day. There's a lot of little things to it, and so that'll be something we'll cover later. But back to what I was talking about in the specific aspect of trying to win the lottery, which is very interesting. Yes, your niece was in it, so write her birth date. You see a clock, it says number 4, write that down. You see other things in it that lead to numbers. There were 4 individuals or 5 people that were chasing you, or 1 person. You write all this down. Sometimes you add them up. So you play with all these numbers. You have this dream that just is overwhelming with numbers, and it doesn't happen all the time. It's maybe a once-a-year event. It could be more than that. So you just play with it. You buy 6 lines, 6 tickets, and you roll down the tickets, and you just put out all the numbers any way you can, or any derivative of that, and you just try your luck. And what can you lose if it's just $6? And you might be able to get, millions of dollars. But anyway, there is a big drawing coming up, and I'm not really an advocate for the state or gambling or whatever. I'm just saying that if you're having numbers kick around and you manage to win the lottery and you take my advice and you win, maybe you'll kick me $1 million and you'll say, hey, Winter Lake helped me out in solving the lottery puzzle. But I don't know. I played, what was it, last week? And I bought a ticket. I bought 6 tickets with a guy here in the studio. And it was so weird. I defied myself and I said, I'm not going to choose the numbers. I'm just going to get lazy. I'm going to allow the machine to read the numbers or whatever. So the machine read the numbers. We had a lot of the numbers that were picked. They were just in a different lineup. It was really weird and it was uncanny. And it got me thinking about it. I'm like, wow. If these were in a different lineup or something, we would have won this huge amount of jackpot. And I wouldn't even know what to do with all that money. I think anybody I'd ever known would be very rich. I'd probably give $1 million to each of my ex-girlfriends, which would probably take all of it. So I don't know. I guess I probably couldn't. We are live 5 to 7, Monday through Freia's Day.
Tomorrow is Photons Day. I will be here again, and we will discuss more lucid reality, lucid dreaming, or everything occult like we always do. And I hope you have a wonderful evening, and I am signing off.